Cover me!
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to What's Important Now from the United States Border Patrol Academy. Here with me today, we have the Chief of the Swanton Sector, which on the northern border in Swanton, Vermont, if you've never heard of it. Somebody that, for all of us that have been around in the Border Patrol for a long time, is somebody near and dear to all our hearts. He's a good friend of mine, Mr. Robert Garcia. Chief, thanks for being here with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I want to tell everybody a little bit about you and what brings you into the United States Border Patrol. Start off with, you were a member of Class 253, so you've been around a while, since 1992.
Yes, May 92.
I ask this of everybody. Do you remember your class chant?
Absolutely.
Let's hear it.
Mean Green 253 on the line is where we'll be.
Nice. And that's what, 29 years later, and you still remember just like that.
That's it.
So do you still stay in touch with classmates? You still have classmates in the patrol?
Only a couple left in the patrol, and it's interesting that so the 253rd session, 254 session, we were sister classes. One came here to Artesia, and one went to Glencoe. So really, there was 100 or so of us with the same EOD dates and whatnot. So,
wow! So you had some that went to Artesia, some that went to Glencoe. Did you all stay in touch? Did you all know each other? Or?
Didn't really know each other, but we knew each other in the fact that if there was any kind of thing when we were looking at seniority, you knew that there was a blending of 253rd. Those two classes. It wasn't just 50 individuals getting whittled down over time with attrition down to for retirements and promotions and things of that nature that leave the patrol.
Okay. And so you came in 1992, and you're actually from El Paso, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm from El Paso, yes. I went to high school in El Paso, and I graduated from University of Texas at El Paso, so I'd call El Paso
UTEP
home.
miners.
I was, my dad was in the military, and we had bounced around, did different locations, but ended up going to high school and then to the university there.
So is that where you heard of the Border Patrol, where you saw them for the first time?
So yes, I did get a good taste of what the Border Patrol was, being there in El Paso. I also had an uncle who joined the Border Patrol while I was in high school, and he got stationed there at Station 1.
Oh, okay.
And he'd tell me about what it is that he was doing, working the border there in El Paso, and the kind of excitement that he'd have. And I was already interested in law enforcement to begin with, and it kind of
gravitated
pulled me right in.
Now, is your uncle, did he stay in, or did he?
He stayed in, yes. Had a long career, retired out of McAllen area, Rio Grande Valley sector, and
you don't happen to know what class he was, do you?
So he was part of the 226, the big class.
The Alabama
yes.
Fort McClellan. Yep.
And so he was part of a big hiring push.
So for those that don't know, the Class 226 we referred to as the Fort McClellan 500 or the Alabama 500. We had 500 trainees go through the Border Patrol Academy at Fort McClellan that one time that it was there. One of the biggest hiring pushes at a moment that we had in our history. So he was part of that.
He was part of that.
And then here comes you in Class 253, not long after that.
Not too long after that, no.
So he would have been 1988, is that about right?
Yes.
Okay.
About there.
All right. And so growing up in El Paso, you actually grew up in a border community, and I've lived in El Paso. I love that town. I think it was a great, one of the best places I've been stationed.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that don't, they only see things on the news about what living in a border community is all about. A lot of misnomers about that. El Paso is actually one of the safest cities in the country, in no small part because of all the law enforcement and military presence that's there. That's a great place to live, is it not?
It is a great place to live. I love my time in El Paso, and that was my first duty station, was going back to El Paso Sector, being part of El Paso Sector, as they say, where the legend began.
Where the legend began.
And but it was a little further west in Deming Station, but growing up in El Paso, going to school there, a lot of friends there. Still have a lot of friends there in El Paso.
So when it comes time to retire, are you going to go back that direction, or what are you looking at?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I ask that because you have gone from one extreme to the other. You're currently in Swanton, Vermont. It doesn't get much more different than El Paso there.
Yes.
And that's a great place to live as well.
It is.
Beautiful part of the country.
Absolutely. I'm living in Forest.
Well, let me tell everybody kind of your background and what you did now, not the least of which I think is where I got to know you. You got onto the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, Class 11. Mm-hmm. That was one of the easier classes, I think, that BORTAC put on, right?
I think you got that confused with another class. I think 11 was the toughest class, I think, that has gone through there.
So Class 11, you start off at the Fabens Station in El Paso Sector, and you've moved all over, but you, in 2004, you became an assistant chief at headquarters. You became the assistant patrol agent in charge of the Ysleta Station in El Paso Sector, and that's what we now call the deputy patrol agent in charge. Used to be called the assistant patrol agent in charge.
Correct.
You were an acting patrol agent in charge there for a while. Took part in some infrastructure improvements and checkpoint construction. We'll talk about that in a second. You became the patrol agent in charge of the Fabens Station in El Paso Sector. So I'm seeing a trend. El Paso is pretty important to you.
And Fabens is now called the Clint Station.
It is now called the Clint Station.
Yes.
Thank you very much for reminding me. 2010, you're promoted to the Assistant Chief Patrol Agent in the El Paso Sector, and had the Disrupt Unit and with the best team. You also did the Alliance to Combat Transnational Threats for the New Mexico West Texas corridor. In March of 2011, you became an associate chief back up to headquarters. And then in February 2015, you were promoted to the Deputy Chief Patrol Agent of the Swanton Sector, and ultimately, in March of 2018, the Chief of the Swanton Sector, where you are now. And so you got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from, as you said, from UTEP, and you graduated from the CBP Leadership Institute and the Department of Defense University of Foreign Military and Cultural Studies Red Team Instructor course. That's a lot.
Yes.
So you've been around a while, and you have crisscrossed and done all kinds of things in the Border Patrol, and I want to hit on some of those. But
a lot of moves.
A lot of moves, and maybe we can talk about that as well, because when we have the trainees and maybe the agents out in the field that are looking to promote or kind of follow your lead and some of the things that you've done, really look to see what advice you might have to give them in that regard. And first thing I want to talk to you about is the northern border versus the southern border. We hear that all the time. We don't just patrol the southwest border. We patrol all of our borders, to include the coast and the northern border as well. Having come from El Paso, one of the largest and busiest sectors in the country, and going up to Swanton, Vermont, what are the differences?
Well, they're significant. You got a lot more resources on our southern border, certainly, and there's twice the amount of border on our northern border, and a whole lot less resources up there to do what it is that we need to do. So when it comes to getting the job done, we need to be as smart as we can about how we get that job done, given the terrain, the complexities of what it is that we're up against. Partnerships are very critical with our law enforcement partners. That's whether it's municipal, tribal, county, state, other federal partners in the area. We have a great collaboration with them when it comes to what we do in Swanton. And Swanton covers some 295 miles of border across 3 states, northern New York, all of Vermont, and all of New Hampshire. So we got our hands full up there, because when the terrain itself is it's forest. You're walking through the forest at times, and you look behind you, and it's hard to discern where you just walked. So our traditional techniques that we use on the southern border that are very effective are less effective, still needed, but less effective in more difficult terrain. And
you mentioned something I think is important to recognize. Your area of responsibility spans 3 different states.
Yes.
Parts of New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. So with that comes 3 different state governments, a multitude of law enforcement partners in all 3 states, different U.S. attorney districts. So you have to have a good sense of collaboration and partnerships to be able to be in a job like that. And I'm sure that your agents have to be willing and ready to adapt to wherever they're assigned to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's maintaining those partnerships and investing in them that keep them solid for us to be able to be as effective as we can be with the constrained resources that we have dedicated to the northern border.
And you talked about the terrain. So what I remember being up in Maine and being over in Grand Forks sector is it's very remote comparatively, and it takes much more to get from point A to point B. So if you have a indication that there's illicit traffic coming across the border, it may take you an hour or two to even get to that area.
Yes, very difficult to get to, and when you're moving in to see what that activity is, it's important to know that you have some backup headed your way, or that it's near to you.
And so, and when a person goes out to the northern border, and I talked about this with Chief Maddox when he was on, you won't go out there and see a border wall. You don't go out there and see any kind of fence. Sometimes you may see a berm. Sometimes you may see a border monument. Sometimes there'll simply be a cut in the forest, a slash as we call it, and that's your only indication that you're crossing from one country into the other.
Correct, and it's it presents a whole host of other challenges that we just don't have on the southern border when it comes to lateral movement, being able to get to what it is that we need to get to, how you get to it, the climate, and when everything has a blanket of snow over it, getting to it on snowmobiles. It's different.
Well, and that's another good thing, because up there, it's not like you can just jump in a Tahoe or a car and drive wherever you have to have these different vehicles, these different ways to be able to access your patrol area. So when we show videos or people see TV shows of Border Patrol out on horseback, on snowmobiles, on ATVs, on UTVs, in Tahoes, or walking on foot, that all actually happens every day.
Correct. It does. And in vessels as well. So we're patrolling the St. Lawrence, and we're also on Lake Champlain, the Missisquoi Bay, and Lake Memphremagog, and so we're out there.
Let me ask you the softball question, because I'm sure there are people that are wondering, is there anything going on the northern border? Is there things to worry about?
There's traffic on the northern border. As a matter of fact, Swanton has more illicit traffic coming through that particular area of the border than most of the other 4,000 miles of northern border. So it's a very busy environment.
And what kind of traffic do you see?
The same kind of traffic that we have on the southern border. We have transnational criminal organizations moving contraband, whether that contraband is narcotics and or humans. And what we do, we take our time with what it is that we put our hands on to really peel back those layers and understand what we have in front of us. And that great collaboration that we have with the U.S. Attorney's Office allows for us to provide a consequence there that usually builds our picture of what we have in our operating environment, the complexity of that organization specifically. So
when we talk about, from a Border Patrol perspective, about border security, we're not just talking about the southern border with Mexico. We're talking about border security as the entirety of the borders in the U.S. When we talk about the threat picture and how we resource our border security efforts, we include those 4,000 plus miles of border with Canada.
Correct. Yes, we do. But we have only so much resources to go around, and right now we position ourselves as best we can, try to leverage that technology that we do have to sense the border environment.
So do you have some of your men and women that are going down to the southwest border right now to help out with the surge?
We do. We have a considerable amount of our resources down there.
So we talk about that, how that impacts our operations, border security operations. The surge is it's a humanitarian issue, and we're down there trying to make sure that everybody that's coming across looking for a better way of life is taken care of in the right way. It does detract from our ability to provide border security, which is our primary mission, not just on the southwest border, but up on the northern border as well. Your manpower that's down there is actually better served from a border security standpoint up there on patrol where you need them.
Well, we have our mission where we need to get it done on both borders, all borders, as you said, and absolutely, we have issues on all our borders, whether it's the coastal, the northern border, that are contributing to the surge on the southern border, where those agents could be sensing in their environments in the coastal and the northern border, where we don't have a whole lot of capability. Now's the time where we're really relying on our partners and technology that we put in place as force multipliers, as well as the community. We get a lot of good information from the border community, being able to discern what is just doesn't sit right, seems suspicious and peculiar, and they call us, and we go investigate, and their suspicions are validated when we put our hands on the smuggling loads that are moving across the area.
So, and going all the way back to 1924 and even before the Border Patrol was officially established, we've dealt with different types of traffic and flow coming across our border illegally since that time. And it's being in the Border Patrol for 29 years, this current surge is not the first surge you've seen.
No. I did also do some time in Tucson Sector at the Naco Station, and now called the Brian Terry Station.
Yep.
And I was working there in the previous high water mark year. It was the year 2000, I believe, where we had the most traffic that we had seen previous to this time that we're in right now. But yes, these surges have happened, but today it's different because of what it is that we're seeing as demographics coming across, and what those demographics present as challenges for us when it comes to processing these groups, especially the ones that are the vulnerable ones, those unaccompanied children.
So I talk about that in the same way. It's, when we were out on patrol, it was mostly single adult males, mostly from Mexico, and the way that we processed them was much simpler than it is today. It was a very short processing form, a 213. We would enroll them in an ident system, and then they would be voluntarily returned at their own option back to Mexico, where they would, in all likelihood, just keep trying to come across. And so while we were catching a lot of people coming across, it was much easier to handle that volume than it is today because of what you're talking about. Much different than when you have family units and unaccompanied children coming from Northern Triangle countries that aren't Mexico. How we process them, how we have to care and hold them is much different than it was back then. And that actually creates a much larger burden on that whole system than when you and I were out there.
Correct. And what I believe is really something that we have to pay attention to is the burden that it puts on what is left out there to continue to do that national security mission. Because as we dedicate more and more resources to that processing of these different demographics and the energy expended there, and there's the energy, as we just discussed, isn't out on the border trying to sense where things are trying to still sneak in.
Seizing narcotics, catching criminals, sexual predators that come across. We can't be two places at once. And so the bird in the hand, we have to be there taking care of the folks that are in our custody, and that precludes our men and women from being out there on patrol.
Yes.
Which is essentially the biggest threat to border security that we've got right now, is not being able to be out there on patrol.
It is not having those resources out there that we need in between those POEs to sense those things that aren't given up, that are trying to get into this country and not be apprehended or encountered by our resources and processed for the claims that they're making.
So I want to talk to you about the system a little bit, because you played an integral role in this latest surge and what we've done to try and get better, working with our partners. So in short, the entire system has to be capable of managing the flow across the border that's coming at us. Not just the Border Patrol, but everybody behind the Border Patrol, to include ICE, ERO, HHS, Office of Refugee and Resettlement, everybody down the line, immigration judges, immigration courts. If there's any point along the way that is not capable of addressing the volume that we're seeing, it starts to cause that backlog. The only people that can't say no to that flow are those of us in green, the Border Patrol.
Correct.
And so we end up getting, a lot of times, bearing the brunt of that backlog. Well, you went to D.C. to work with our partners, specifically HHS, to try and help out in that regard. And that has helped the time in custody, in Border Patrol custody, tremendously. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Absolutely. And so when the unaccompanied children volume started to build, and they started to build after the end of the calendar year last year, and then it got to a high water mark in March, where what you just described as the logistics tale of not all of those different components of the United States government's resources to deal with volumes weren't synchronized in a way or prepped in a way for that volume. So I went to D.C. and I was able to work with those partners there in the Ronald Reagan building, and we had HHS, ORR, the ICRO, CBP, FEMA, a lot of great people working hard to try to work through what it was that where there was friction, and looked at the process and looked at how it is that we were doing things so that we could better facilitate how we interacted, as well as building capability with the emergency intake sites being stood up to allow for a better place for these vulnerable populations. And then work to get the backlog down, setting some priorities, some demographic priorities. We wanted to get the most vulnerable to the less vulnerable out of our custody as quickly as possible, and get back to where we should be, which is not having any unaccompanied a child in our custody over 72 hours. And it was a big task given how much we had when we started, but we got synced up to where we needed to be, and we were able to push that backlog into better facilities, HHS facilities, those UACs, and it freed up our processing locations, and it allowed our agents some agents to be reassigned or realigned to other areas. So that demographic priority that I was working to mitigate was the unaccompanied children demographic. However, there was other demographics that we talked about were still there, so still needed also the energies to process. So when we got that population down, then we were able to maintain that first and foremost to become compliant with TVPRA and Flores. Then
so explain what those are real quick for those
the
who
extra, the policies and guidelines that dictate that we should not have those unaccompanied children over 72 hours.
And acknowledging that we have a long way to go still. We're still improving. So I think it's the point that you're making is that we're not there yet, but we've made good strides, and we'll take every victory.
Great strides.
Yeah.
Made great strides with the unaccompanied children demographic for sure, in really syncing up HHS, and I got to give credit to HHS and really building the capacity with the emergency intake sites that they established to have better places than our holding facilities, our temporary holding facilities. They weren't designed to hold these volumes for lengths of time beyond 72 hours.
That's not our intended mission, and that's not what our facilities are for. That is what HHS-ORR is intended for, and so the fact that we can get them into their hands as soon as possible, that's a victory, because it also allows us to be able to get back out on patrol and doing the job that we're intended to do. So, yeah, I don't know if everybody will be able to realize just how huge that accomplishment was and the hand that you played in it.
Oh, it was good. It was very rewarding to get that team to where we were able to function well and get down to where we had zero in custody over 72 hours was phenomenal. It's clearing out the backlog that was there over 72 hours, which was substantial, thousands, and put us and position us in a much better place as it relates to the unaccompanied children volumes.
And I want to dispel another rumor. So all up and down that system, whether you're talking about CBP, Border Patrol, FEMA, HHS, ICRO, nobody's sitting there saying, we don't want to worry about this, or this, everybody's willing. They want to try and do what they can to be good partners and solve this problem that's before us. At the end of the day, it just becomes a capacity issue, and we have to work together to try and streamline those processes and build capacity, as you said, where we can. But that's a team effort.
It is a team effort. And it doesn't matter when you come into a team environment, a joint environment like that, then that's the way you have to look at it. We were all in it for the same end, which was to help the vulnerable populations that were in our custody and put them in a better place and care for them. And we were able to do that. And everybody that was a part of that, I give credit to the diverse team that was there.
So we still have the flow coming across the border. It's just that now we're able to deal with it in a better way.
Absolutely. So the flow is still there, but because of some of the things that we were able to come together and interlink with the entities, ICE, ERO, the HHS, ORR, with the capacities and bed space and whatnot, now we're able to move those flows much more efficiently, much more effectively, and that has allowed us, the Border Patrol agents, the CBPOs that were all out there processing these volumes, some space, some time to do that.
And so I say it's progress. But it's not the magic bullet yet, because, as you said, the flow's still coming across. Our agents, our men and women, are still having to dedicate themselves to intake and processing and the temporary care and feeding that must be done. That still takes them away from the border security mission.
Absolutely.
So that flow needs to be mitigated somehow.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So, and I want to switch to that on the border security side, because there are folks that are responsible for that flow, the transnational criminal organizations that direct the flow to their benefit. They take advantage of the chaos, so to speak. They, off the backs of those that are seeking a better way of life, to divert us and pull us off of mission so that they can get other illicit goods and narcotics and folks of interest across more successfully.
That's been the case for quite some time. Transnational criminal organizations, complex organizations, they're very in tune with what the flows are that are coming up and presenting themselves on the border and manipulating that to their benefit. I would imagine that the more that we can disrupt and dismantle that, that we might be able to,
because that's the real threat
in some of those flows.
In some of them, but that's the real threat. When we talk about the threat to our country, it's them that we're talking about. We're not talking about the average citizen that's coming across looking for a better way of life. We all feel that, and when it comes to the children especially, nobody wants to see anybody in a bad situation. And when they're in the hands of those individuals, they are in a bad situation.
They are definitely in a bad situation there.
And we see that all the time. We've seen just a couple examples here the past couple months of children being abandoned there by the border or dropped off of the fence, and when you're that Border Patrol agent and you come across that child, how do you know? Okay, do they know where they're from? Do they know what their phone number is, their parents? That's an incredibly stressful and difficult situation for anybody, especially if you're a parent.
It's heartbreaking. It is.
Absolutely. And so you think about that, what they've gone through to get to that point. In the hands of smugglers and human traffickers. And even when they cross our borders, if they don't get caught by us, they're still in the hands of those individuals. You've seen the stash houses. You've seen the tractor trailer loads that people being locked in tractor trailers in incredibly high temperatures. And when they get to wherever it is they're going, are they going to be forced into a human trafficking situation? It doesn't stop once they cross the border.
Yes, and it's a lot of human smuggling turns into human trafficking. A lot of what it is that they owe those transnational criminal organizations for their passage. How that's paid off, it can last. It can endure, and to what extent, what kind of damage that does to a person. It's not a good situation for us to be in, not to be out there and optimize between those POEs to combat that.
And it's tough for our men and women to have to see that day in and day out. I mean, they see some of the worst conditions, and just by the number of the rescues that they do every single year across all the sectors, and being there in those in our holding centers, and I've seen them changing diapers, mixing formula, bringing games for the kids to to play with, and they see it from a parent standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, that's a stressful thing for anybody to have to see and deal with every day.
It is, and I think some of the things that we try to do to help alleviate the situation with the unaccompanied children piece in the volumes that were there may have helped with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I went down there and I looked at how their processing is done in the Donna facility, and we are caring for them when they
No doubt,
they
yeah.
get into our custody. They are in better hands when they're in our custody for sure, in the way that we are taking care of them. But when you see how they are being moved, and that there's phone numbers and names being written on these kids,
Yeah.
it is, and that's it. That's what you have when they're left on the border with just a name and a number and maybe an address.
And that's the part, trying to drive that point home. When we say that we have to stop that flow of illicit traffic, illicit people coming across, it's not just for our benefit, it's for their benefit too. People coming to this country, that's what built this country, and we just need everybody to do it the right way. They need to be able to do it the right way, and let us focus on the things and people that would come to do this country and its people harm, and people that want to immigrate the right way, people who want to come in and be a part of this country, be able to facilitate that somehow.
Correct, and the way it's happening here, the amount of those volumes that are coming up and having to make the journey in the fashion that they are, and to the how much of that volume is being victimized that's unknown.
Yep.
But we know that is occurring.
We see instances of it. It's
Absolutely.
probably that tip of the iceberg theory. You only see
Correct.
what you see under the surface. Who knows what else is going on? Well, so back to the border security side. So we're focused on the threats, the people that are smuggling narcotics in, the people that are bringing in, the convicted criminals, and we don't just stop. We're not just out there patrolling the border, and if they get past us up, they made it. We have a layered approach to how we do border security, and one of the things that you are pretty familiar with is our checkpoint operations. Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of things about that on YouTube and on the news. And talk through at a basic level kind of the purpose of our immigration checkpoints and what they're designed to do for us.
So it's really addressing the routes of egress away from the border, and like you said, we can't if there's not enough of us out at the border, then some of what it is that comes through that border is going to utilize those roadways to get away from the border and further their entry into the United States. Been working at checkpoint operations since my first station, Deming Station, and we had every facet of Border Patrol work out there in Deming, and we'd set up tactical checkpoints on different roadways, and you'd have smuggling loads come up to those checkpoints. It's a very challenging situation when you know that you're setting up a tactical checkpoint, and you're going to catch something, and then you're going to become, encumbered with having to process that, and that multiple other potential loads are now going to be making its way through that same roadway because you're occupied with the load that you're processing. So they're an integral part to addressing that traffic, that illicit flow, because it addresses the road networks that allow that egress and those transnational criminal organizations to move that contraband from another country into this country and press that contraband into this country.
So it's really about going after those that are smuggling. It's about trying to make life more difficult for them to ply their trade in that area. The thought being that if it's too difficult or there's too great a consequence, they won't do it, or they'll go someplace else.
Yes.
And so in addition to that, you also have, especially in Swanton, I know this because I know you, the targeted enforcement effort. You take it to the networks that are responsible as best you can.
Oh, yes, most definitely. That is And I can't say again enough about the partnerships with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the work that we do with them and our other partners that are out there, DEA, HSI, FBI, there, as well as the state and county partners. It's really understanding what it is that you have when you have something, when you have a smuggling load, and you catch that smuggling load, and then you apply that consequence, and then you get the good interviews of those people that are being smuggled, and you come to learn that there's an organization that's operating against you that's substantial, that's complex, that is very good at what they are doing against you, and then you have to counter that.
I think
in a challenging environment.
Very challenging. And I think it was General McChrystal said it takes a network to defeat a network. Mm-hmm. So on the other side of it, on our side of it, we have a network. We have a network of all of our investigative partners, federal, state, and local. We have ourselves. And whatever consequence can be delivered, whoever ends up putting the handcuffs on that individual, 99 times out of 100, that was a team effort to get to that point. And we don't really care what the charge is as long as it makes them not able to operate illicitly in that area. So state prosecution may go. It may be IRS that prosecutes them for tax evasion. Who knows? It could be DEA for something for narcotics. It could be HSI that does something immigration related. It could be anything. We don't care as long as the bad guys are the ones that go to jail.
And when you are able to apply that consequence, when you are able to work that well with your U.S. Attorney's Office and have that consequence delivery to those violators, they're more apt to tell you more about the criminal organization they're working for, and then you get more understanding of your operating environment. You get more understanding to the extent of that network that's working against you, and then you can do more about it. Then you can be in the right place at the right time the next time that they're moving, and you again get another and another and another.
And I think that's such a great message to give to the men and women that are trainees right now, that are those that are interested in joining the Border Patrol, and even the members of the public that we serve. It is so much more complex than just seeing agents in green and white Tahoes patrolling the border. There are so much more going on behind the scenes that are going after some significant threats to this country. That is what the Border Patrol and CBP is all about. That is our mission, not being confined to just this one piece that they see on the news.
Correct. We have a complex mission. We are constantly going after complex threats, and we utilize very talented people to do so.
Yep. So you personally, 29 years in, and you have seen a lot of, like I said, surges and changes in this organization. You joined when it was under the Department of Justice, Immigration Naturalization Service. You, like me, went through the transition to CBP, and you saw our world change. The Border Patrol grew in ranks just substantially in a relatively short amount of time. Seeing all the things that you've seen and going through some of the challenges that we've gone through, there's something that keeps us in the game. Number one, coming to a job like this is a calling. If you're going to be a first responder, if you're going to be in the military, if you're going to be law enforcement, fire, EMS, you name it, you don't get in those fields to get rich. You do it for another reason. What was yours?
Oh, the reason was to serve. It's to help protect this country. And I hold to that. I try to hold true to my oath that I took, like the trainees here at the academy. That same vigor, that same fire to do that mission is still with me, and I enjoy it.
There's two words that are very important to anybody that wears this uniform or this badge. You know what I'm talking about.
Honor first.
Honor first. That is our motto. That's our guiding principle. That's something that we live by, and we like to say those two words belong to us. Talk to the trainees about what Honor First means to you, or what it has meant in your 29 years with this family.
It means choosing a lifestyle that is that puts service before self. It means that you're going to look to do what is the right thing, that people external to us should be able to look at your actions and see that they were reasonable, that they were righteous in all things that you're doing.
So another softball question for you. Would you say that particular piece of how we live plays into our success with our partners in our community? And
I think so, absolutely. Is having that attitude, that positive attitude, that what we're doing is a critical mission, and having that esprit de corps behind that mission, I think it resonates with our partners.
I do too, and I think that goes to the public's trust. That's the thing that all law enforcement organizations have to be successful. If we don't have the trust of those we serve, we cannot function, we cannot do our job. And only by living honor first do we preserve and keep that public's trust anywhere in the country. And I don't think our partnerships, especially with our communities, would be possible if they were looking at us out of the corner of their eye wondering what we were up to.
No. I think we try to be as transparent as possible, and I think educating outward that we're holding true to our oaths to serve at the Constitution, support and defend the Constitution, should shine through.
Yeah. So you have the trainees here at the Academy that are listening, and you have men and women out there that are serving right now. Any message that you want to give to them, or anything you want to say to them from 29 years of service to the youngest agent out there right now?
Welcome. Welcome to the patrol. Glad to have you. I look forward to protecting this country with you.
It is a family.
It is.
Yeah. You are here. In what class are you doing the fireside chat for tonight?
1165.
1165. That's your class. That's
the
one that you're mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Most folks don't know that every class that comes through the Academy right now is assigned a senior mentor. It's somebody senior leadership in the organization, and you guys come out and you interact with the class at different points in time. What's been your experience with that so far?
I think it's great. I think it's a great opportunity to allow these agents that are just coming in to the organization to have some back and forth with some of the leadership that's already been through what they've been through, and to ask very candid questions about what the job's going to entail and what it is that they're going to be asked to do. What is that expectation, and I'm learning from them. I'm actually getting energized from them to see them and to see that youthful energy.
It is kind of reinvigorating being here whenever they're because you feel it, you feed off of that. You see them moving in formation and they're sounding off, and you can see. I mean, they're dedicated. They're locked on. They're studying. They're doing their physical training. Everything about it, you can tell they're excited to be here. Doesn't matter how long you've been in or if you're in a rut. You come to this place and it can't help but kind of recharge the batteries a little bit.
It does.
Yeah,
it does. And what you've been doing here with the Academy and how it's evolved, I think it's great things. So thank you for that.
And thank you for coming here. And I know that the trainees, it means the world to them to have you here and be able to talk to you, and the fact that you're taking time out of your schedule to fly all the way from Vermont, which I'm sure is a direct flight to Roswell, New Mexico. Right?
Not necessarily a direct flight, no.
Well, Chief,
I brought the coal with me. So.
You did, and it's a downpour down there. So I'll take that any day of the week over 110 degrees. But that's just me. But it means a lot that you're here, Chief. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for another episode of What's Important Now. We'll talk again soon. Honor first.